Hey friends, welcome to episode 176 of Meeple to Meeple. Today, I'm joined by Evan Wilcock from Sleepless Night Games in the UK. Evan is not only a game designer and publisher, but he's also the founder of the Board Game Prototype Group. It's a community that has brought together designers from around the world to share their ideas, playtest games, and to support one another throughout the often challenging journey of creating tabletop games. We're going to explore his journey into game design, what it's like building a publishing company from the ground up, the lessons he's learned from working alongside other creators, and why community can be just as important as the games themselves. Whether you're a designer, a publisher, or simply someone who loves seeing how great games come to life, there's going to be a lot to learn from Evan's story. Currently, Evan has 3 games in design. He's collaborating with other designers, and he's got one where he's going to go it alone. So that'll be interesting to talk about. Evan, thank you for joining me. How are you?
Very good. Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. I'm really excited. I was telling you just before recording, when I found out you were one of the founders of the board game prototype community, I'm jazzed to talk to you about that. So thanks for taking time. I appreciate
No
it.
worries. Yeah, really excited to be here. I think it's going to be a great experience.
For those of you who are listening on Spotify or other podcast streaming services and not watching, it is summertime, and I am wearing the Cool Air, the all white Scally Cap from Boston Scally. I'm convinced they will one day sponsor me. So shout out to Boston Scally. The Cool Air has breathable material, and it is perfect for the upcoming board game convention season. Look good and feel good. Boston Scally. Check it out. Evan's
You're
like,
gonna
what
get.
just
You're gonna.
happened?
I was
What's
going to
going
say
on?
you're definitely going to get that promotion. That promotion for it now. Yeah.
I have been trying to court them for years, and I'm really, really excited. So yeah. So I wanted to begin with your personal journey. Kind of pretty much all my conversations start with this first question. So what was the first board game you ever played as a kid?
So I guess the first board game, the first what I'd call board game that I remember after kind of your usual your snakes and ladders and stuff, the
Sure,
one that I
sure.
would call a board game that I'd play would be probably Carcassonne and Settlers of Catan. My uncle introduced myself and my 2 brothers to that quite early on in our lives, and it was the first kind of experience, I guess, of a more modern board game outside of your usual board games that you'd have as a kid. And so yeah, I think that's what kind of made me maybe fall in love with playing those games. I've got 3 siblings, so there's a lot of board games as we grew up. But they're the ones that, yeah, definitely as the kind of first introduction
Yeah.
to something a bit different.
What did you love most about them? They're both very different games, and now you are who you are in the industry. What did you like about those games that you stuck with it?
I think it's the having that kind of introduction of some strategy to it, really. I think that's what you miss when you first start out, from when I was younger anyway, as a child, and you're playing games. There isn't that strategy to it. It's often at that point in my life, it was roll and move, or you're doing the very basics of playing a card, picking up a card, and not really having anything extra to it. I played a lot of chess as well. Still do, actually, but yeah, played a lot of chess as a child, and I think I was very used to having some of that strategy. So these games where you could use that and actually have a long-term plan of, right, I want to build this, I want to move across these steps to get to this end goal. I think that was really, really pulled me in. And actually it's yeah, using your brain a bit more than some of the other games I was used to probably before that.
Right. Here's the controversial question. What's your favorite player color?
See, this is an interesting one. I did a post on this actually on Instagram this week that has gone very well. But I'm colorblind, so for me, it's a really interesting one when it comes to color. But I'd absolutely recommend have a look on my page at the colorblind one, because I've shown the differences in certain games of what they look like to me, and then what they look like to the other people, and showing the photos side by side, because everyone is shocked at like how I see the colors. There are certain games where they're like, how do you see that so differently to what everyone else does? So for me, color is actually really important when it comes to player color, because I need something that is really clear, really bright. So whatever the brightest, clearest color is in that certain game will be the one I would choose. So it's very rarely a red or a green. but a yellow or a blue are usually my choices because they do stand out.
Are there any games that come to your mind, so this is where you're gonna give them a shout out, that accommodate and make the game accessible to you with color blindness? You're like, "This game is just really perfect or accessible."
Yeah, absolutely. When it comes to there's certain games, there's a lot of games that do this now, but certain ones like Sakana Stack from Huff No More, Muster as well from Play Monkey Games, they've used double coding in, and a lot of games do it now, but using that double coding with the cards. So actually, yes, you've got the color, but you've also got something else that you can see, very visual, that isn't color, to make that decision and have those choices. Because yeah, again, I feel like this is games where sometimes the big retail games, when for younger children, this is where I struggle with playing games sometimes with my children, is they don't think about these things. So suddenly you're trying to play these games, but I'm asking my 5-year-old, like, what color is this? Like, am I using the right color for this part of the game? And
Right.
he's like correcting me because it's not got that double coding. So yeah, there's some games like that now I think are so important, and it helps. I'm there with the board game prototype group, for example, able to offer a free colorblind consultancy where I say, look, just send me anything you're not sure on. I'll have a look at it and tell you how it looks to me. So Mike from Huff and More does that a lot. And yeah, Spencer from Play Monkey Games did that this week, actually. Mikey from Kugo as well. He also sent me something this week just to say, like, how does this look to you? And I sent him back a picture of how it looked to me because I've got an app that I use to show that. And he was like, wow, yeah, you can't tell the difference between these greens and these yellows. And it's like, they're so similar to you. So he's made some changes. And that's exactly what it takes, I think, is just to have those recognition of what works, because there's so many games I can't play or I don't want to play because it's just not easy to play those games.
What about because we talk a lot about, color blindness, and we talk about, player color and the components that you use to play the game. What about the hexes or the tiles or the board itself, right? Because that's color as
Yeah.
well. How does that relationship work and how does it impact your experience?
Yeah, I think sometimes it's difficult to see if you're putting certain colors onto a board that is another color, and having the lack of, I guess, the contrast for me is often a lot less than the contrast is for other people. So whereas they might see, well, that's clearly blue and that's clearly purple. For me, there's sometimes a bit of a mix between the two, and I can't tell what that difference is. So I'm kind of struggling to, yeah, if I'm seeing certain parts of the board and going, well, I don't know if this card goes there or this tile goes there, or actually I need to play it on this area. So yeah, certainly where possible, I think if you can double code something, you can have a pattern, you can have numbers system, you can have letters, symbols, whatever it might be. Any iconography that you can use is so much more helpful to someone who, yeah,
Right.
is colorblind, to be able to tell those differences quickly.
So early on when you're playing, because you mentioned Catan and Carcassonne, which player colors are, very similar, wooden components, that kind of similar color, but then they got Carcassonne's predominantly the tiles are green or brown for the cities. Catan's got the colored hexes. Was there a game early in your experience as a gamer that you were like, wow, this game is so great. I can see the contrast in the colors?
Yeah, I'm not sure if there was one that particularly stood out, maybe, but it was interesting because myself and my two brothers were all colorblind to some degree, and my sister didn't used to play games as much with us, but the three of us used to play games, and I was the most severely colorblind. But the amount of times we'd just be moving each other's pieces around before realizing that, oh no, I've been moving your piece for the last like 2 turns, and you've been moving mine, and then switching back and go, right, now I know which one's mine. So yeah, I think it's casual enough in those games where you don't need to worry about it, and unless you're in those situations where you are playing with other colorblind people, usually someone can point it out to you. But yeah, there's been plenty of times I've formulated a big plan around something to go, yes, I'm gonna do this, and then I can do that, and then only to realize I'm not even looking at my own pieces, I'm looking at the wrong color pieces, and I've
Right.
formulated a plan with my cards for someone else's pieces to then, well, that's none of this is going to work now. So yeah, it can be very frustrating, but yeah,
Right.
I've learned to deal with it and come forward with that.
So you have this added struggle that you have to contend with in playing games. And then you have, at some point, you moved from just being a gamer to a game designer. And even more than that, I mean, your resume is just incredible. Was there a game that you played and you were like, "This is it. I wanna design games like this."
Yeah, well, I think for myself, just before kind of COVID happened, there was, yeah, I think I was kind of in a space where mentally I was like kind of needed to come away from certain things and and bring myself out of certain aspects of my life at the time. And actually, then when COVID hit and that's not the right time to not be in the best mental state when you're kind of at home. I had my wife there, which was great, and that's all good. But at the same time, you are very shut off from a lot that's going on. At that point, I kind of started to look at, right, well, what can I do that isn't just sat in front of the Xbox and playing games on there, and actually something that's a bit more analog as such, and bringing myself away from those screens better for my kind of mental health. And I started looking at solo board games and kind of how they work. And that was my kind of introduction back into modern board gaming after being out for quite some time. So it's not been that long where I've been as focused on board games as I was when I was a kid. So yeah, I think Robinson Crusoe was the game that brought me back into that. And yeah, but playing that game was great as a kind of solo game and then I was like, wow, there's so many more mechanics and things going on than I've ever had in the past. And just going, wow, this kind of opens up those doorways really to kind of what can be done in games and what's interesting. So yeah, there was a lot more games after that. And then yeah, as I'm kind of playing them, it really kind of just inspired me to be like, yeah, oh, yeah, I could make something that might be good, something like this. Not quite to the level of those ones, I think, in terms of complexity. My games are a bit simpler
Well,
so far.
maybe, but, time will tell. We'll see, like, right?
Yeah.
So, what was the first prototype that you ever made, and what did it teach you about game design?
So I'd say the first prototype I made was when I was on holiday, just myself and my wife before kids. So those times where you've actually got a bit of time to think and a bit of time to relax. And yeah, I was sat by the pool, and I'm not the best at switching off and just lying by a pool. So my mind was kind of racing around, and I wanted to play a card game, and I just came up with a card game, which is actually the very earliest prototype I'd say of one of my games that has now been signed and is being published, called Kickabout. At the time, it was just called Five Aside. It was just using a deck of playing cards and then a coin, and the coin was the ball. And you'd put your cards down and you'd turn over certain cards to pass. And you had to have certain values of numbers to be able to make a successful pass. They were trying to match those numbers or beat those numbers to then intercept. And it's got very much the core feeling of what Kickabout is now. But it was just a deck of cards, and it was just playing with my wife on the balcony. And she doesn't like football, but she loved this game, and it was a very quick game, and it was great to be able to play that with her. And then, yeah, that was the kind of very first prototype, which got me, I guess, thinking about how much you can do with so little. I'd say is the kind of key aspect I'd say I took out of that really.
Okay. So so then you move to becoming a designer. You start Sleepless Night Games. What inspired the name Sleepless Night
Well,
Games?
that's when the kids came along. But yeah, there was a lot of sleepless nights, and that's when I used to do and still do occasionally. They're a bit better now than they were, but they don't sleep very well. I've managed to get them off to sleep tonight before this, which is good. But yeah, there was a lot of sleepless nights, and actually, so much of my design work I do on my phone in terms of kind of coming up with ideas and noting them down and uh, yeah, kind of iterating things in my brain and getting them down to less so on paper, but on my phone in my notes. And I'd be sat there with one of the kids during the night or lying next to them on the floor, not being able to sleep, but just making notes and putting things into my phone and kind of yeah having these ideas that kind of came up as I kind of went along. But yeah, it was mainly inspired by the kids, and then yeah, I do love a good pun as well. So sleepless nights was perfect.
Right. For those of you who haven't figured it out, it's night with a kid.
Yes, yeah.
So in that experience, what was the biggest surprise to you as a publisher slash designer that you weren't maybe prepared for initially?
I think the biggest surprise is probably just how many people are designing games in the community in the world, and just how many games are the vast difference between how many games are published every year or how many games are being designed and pitched and put on Kickstarter and don't get to that end point of actually being made into a real physical game. And I think
Sure.
that's
Yep.
quite coming into it now as a new designer. I think that's a big wake up call to go. It's not just as simple as I've got a game. It's going to be a reality. There's a lot of steps between having an idea and actually it being a successfully made game. And success looks different for different people. I think this is really
Sure.
important as well, and something that Chris Bucky, who I've play tested with from the very start, he over at Entro Games, I always see him banging on about this as well. Is the success looks different for different people. If you want to make a game that you want to just play with your friends by yourself, that's absolutely fine. That is success to you. If that is what you want to do, then that can be successful and your friends can enjoy it and you can enjoy it. And that's a success at the end of the day. If that's what you wanted to do, then great. Other people want to get their game signed. Other people want to publish their own game. Other people want to start a whole publishing business. Other people want to have not just a one hit wonder, but multiple games that go along. And there's different levels of success. So, but I think it's having that kind of realization that when I'm there going, I want to design a board game that gets published, and then go, wow, there is a lot to do before that comes to that stage of actually having an idea and going to that first playtest session that I went to in Birmingham, and then going, wow, okay, so there is a lot before I get to a point where I can say, yes, I'm a published designer.
Right. Right. So I think one of the things that I've noticed in my journey talking to so many designers is everything you just laid out. That is not for me. I'm not designing any games. No, indeed. My wife likes to say that I'm a big idea guy.
Yeah.
And it's funny because I just posted, like, just a few days ago on all my socials, a reel where I came up with an idea for a board game while I was mowing the lawn
Yeah. Yeah. I
outside,
think I saw that. I think I commented on that one. Yeah.
and I'm just waiting for someone to grab it and run with it because it's like,
Yeah.
I'm never going to do anything with it, but I have so many designer friends. I don't care who takes it here.
Yeah.
I
Absolutely.
don't, yeah, uh,
I've got so many ideas written in my phone that have started and then
right,
I've just not done anything with them, or I have done something with them. I've got it to a point and then I've gone, you know what? I'll just park that for now. I'll move on to something else. And I really struggle to I've always been someone that struggles to get something to the end of the line to actually finish it quite often. And this, what I've really loved about I guess my journey in board games is I have now managed to do that. I have managed to get things to the very end and get them successful to that point, which I think has been it's helped change some of my personality in that sense. But there's still a lot of ideas where I go, oh, this is a great idea. I'll start building a prototype and then go, oh no, this is a better idea. And I move on to something that's more shiny and new. And I'm like, yeah, I want to do this one instead. So yeah, it's kind of trying to go, no, stick with this one. This one is like the winner. Take this one through to the end and then move on to something else, which is not always easy to do. And they get to those more difficult stages that take a long time.
sure. So in your head, how do you make that determination, right? Because that's a really key moment in a process is whether or not it gets shelved for later or you continue with that project. So when you're in that moment, how do you make that determination for yourself to move
Yeah.
forward?
Yeah. I think it's a really tricky one to do. And I think for myself, I think it may be a bit easier than it is for some other people because if you've got more than one idea, it's easy to move on from that idea to try
Sure.
something new. If you have an idea and you're really passionate about it, and that is your game that you want to make, you want to get this to the finish line, it's very difficult to go, I'm going to park that now and move on to something else because that is what you want to do. And if it's a subject you're passionate about, it's really, yeah, difficult to to do that. But for me, it needs to click pretty quickly. And if it doesn't start to click quite quickly, I'll move on and I might come back to the theme, but I won't necessarily come back to all aspects of the game. Taking Treasures, which is my game that I'm looking to put on Kickstarter in October, that started out as taking taking tokens, and that was my very first game that I took to a playtest event years ago as taking tokens. It went down well, but it wasn't quite right. And it was I've learned so much since then in terms of what I can do as a designer. That at the
Right.
time, I felt it was very good. I felt this is going to do really well. But now looking back, I was a bit naive in terms of that, of just not knowing, because you don't know what you don't know, do you? So
Right.
like, this is great. And then actually, as I've kind of got to this point now, I look back and go, it wasn't great. It was good enough. Like I could play it with people and they would enjoy it, but it wasn't ever going to get published compared to all these other games that are out there. So whereas Taking Treasures, I'm much happier with now. And looking back at other games, I'm like, well, yeah, clearly I've kind of got to that point. But there's other games I've had, like a game. There's a game design I've got called Mine and Dash, which I took that to a little competition at HandyCon, and it won that competition. People feedback was really good, but it then I was pitching it for a while. It wasn't getting anywhere. No one was taking it on, so I moved on from it. And I think sometimes that wasn't just a case of the game being no good, but actually I needed something fresh to actually just kind of get back into the love of designing and not just focusing on pitching, because there's a lot of rejection. As I said before, there's so many games being made out there and so many designs that you will get a lot of no's, which is understandable. But at the same time, if designing is what you love and not pitching, then you want to get back
Right.
to doing designing as opposed to just pitching
Sure.
and not
Absolutely.
enjoying it. Yeah.
So this is my favorite question. I love asking this question to designers, and I really enjoy curating and watching you answer it. I don't know what it is about this question. This is not going to be a surprise. Everyone hears me all the time. So you mentioned playtesting. How easy was it for you to allow yourself to be vulnerable, to open up your game, your idea to strangers to playtest?
Yeah, it's such a strange experience because I had no idea going into it. And my prototype was way over designed in terms of kind of building it and making it look pretty and making it look good. And yeah, because like I say, it was called Taking Tokens at the time, and it was all these plastic tokens with numbers that I'd stuck onto them, and they all had these sticker numbers on, and I'd kind of put 40 stickers on those, and then I'd done loads of cards, written out all these cards, and I'd made it all look so pretty and nice. And then yeah, to get to an event, and then suddenly you realize, oh, it doesn't have to look like this. It can literally just be a few
Sure.
pieces of card, and that's it. And people can work with that and get that feedback. But yeah, when I went to I went to Playtest UK Birmingham as my first one. That was my local place to go to. I went there, and yeah, to be fair, the welcome I got from Will, who's known as the board game wizard on on the socials, he was so welcoming, so great. So he's such a good character. He's part of the board game prototype group as well, and such a big supporter of it. But yeah, he was just so welcoming, inviting me in to then show my game and to give that feedback and to support it. I think that's what you need. It's difficult for people to come to these things. So when they do, they just need to be made to feel so welcome, because there's going to be otherwise there's going to be so many designers and so many games out there that are just going to fall into nothing because they've just tried and not been given that opportunity. And yeah, that's why I think we're always in the board game prototype group. We will welcome everyone who wants to join into it. There's no you must have hit this level of experience before you can join. There's nothing like that. There's no, well, what stage is your game at? You could have an idea. You're welcome to join our group and discuss your idea and how do I do a playtest? Well, yeah, obviously we'll talk to you about that. This is how you go out and do that. So I think that's so important, because there's probably some really good games out there that never come to anything because people aren't given those opportunities, those chances.
Right. Right. So I'm this is a perfect time to go back to and talk about the board game prototype group. So as a founding member, I don't even know how you refer to yourself in this situation, but what problem were you trying to solve when you started the group?
Yeah, it's a really good question. I think we had a lot of this. So UKG this weekend just gone was the first time we had a stand as well. So we got a lot of this question there as well of like, how did this start? Where did this
Yeah.
come from? So I was, I guess, the founding member in terms of it was my idea. We had some people that joined obviously at the start to make it happen as well. Couldn't have done it on my own. But my idea was, well, I want to post about my game designs. I want to grow my socials. I want to have something to put out there into the world of what I'm doing, why I'm doing it, and all the bits that go with that. And I find it very difficult to brag about or to tell people about the stuff I'm doing, because it feels very like, to me, it's like, well, why do you care? Why do you care what I'm doing? Why do you care about this prototype? Like for me, I'm like, is anyone going to find this interesting? And I've spoken to content creators as well, and then a lot of them say it's the same thing. Like you've just got to put stuff out there. Not everyone will care about it, but some people will, and you'll start to grow a community of people who are interested in it. But it's so difficult to do, and to do that consistently, to actually have that week in, week out, to keep building it. So that was how, kind of how it started. I reached out to people on Facebook, some people I'd met already within kind of sort of going to a few events in terms of board games, and saying, I want something to post every week. Would anyone be interested in us having a weekly theme? This is what we post about. Everyone puts a post out. We all like it, share it, support it, comment. We all do that each week. So we all have a reason to do a post. So every week I'm going to have a new post going out, but also you're having that support from each other to then on those posts. So it's not just going out and it's just sinking as like a lead balloon as soon as you put it out into the world.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that was very much how it started. And it started as a theme, but very quickly it turned into a chat that was a support network, a support chat of community that was there. So while we still have the weekly theme, that still goes on. It's not a requirement to take part in it every week or any week. But I myself am terrible for a lot of the time for not doing it or forgetting to do it. But I would always support everyone else that does it.
Yeah.
But it's also great then to have this chat that we can reach out with successes, with failures, with questions. So we have some very experienced people in the group, all the way to some very new people. And the very experienced people still have questions as well, but the new people are asking questions that the experienced people have gone through those things. So now they're able to say, well, this is what you need to do. This is how you go about it. Anything from prototyping, playtesting, marketing, tariffs, taxes, anything that might be going on, manufacturing, fulfillment, the lot really, it gets all covered in that group. And it's so useful to have because otherwise you just feel a bit lost as a designer out there in the world on your own with no community around you. It's a very lonely place.
Right.
So a lot of people have really, really loved what we've done with it, which I think was shown in having a stand at UKGE, because that was all funded by our community. We're not a business. We don't have an income for
Right.
our business. So there's no way of us funding it without the community saying, yes, we'll all volunteers donating some money to make it happen. And it's a costly thing to have a stand at an expo. It's not quite as costly in the UK as it is in the US, from what I've heard. I think it's a big extortionate in the US, but in the UK it is still expensive, and to have a section of a stand was a really useful thing for us to have. And we had a lot of new designers join, with a lot of new followers, of people that were interested in seeing new designs. So it's come a long way, I think, since those early days.
How does membership work in this group? I mean,
It's purely a case of just reaching out to the group and messaging and saying, I'd like to join. There's no membership fees. There's no, like I say, there's no requirements of you need to be at a certain level. You need to have reached a certain amount of experience in terms of design. It is purely, if you want to join, yes, you can join. It's a bit of a weird one because we are on Discord now as well, but we're mostly on Instagram. But Instagram only allows 250 people in a group, in a chat, before it's hit its limit. So we've twice now, in the 2.5 years that it's been going, twice now we've hit that limit. But we just have to
wow.
migrate. We have to migrate to a new chat, and then we go, right, anyone who wants to join the new chat, follow this link. And the amount of people that then don't follow the link and drop off, and we don't have to anymore. But that's because they joined. They maybe didn't follow through on their design. Maybe they don't want
Yeah.
to be part of the community. They don't see the
Sure.
benefit. So we keep the ones that do see the benefit and do want to keep doing it, and that's great. So we kind of go up to like 250, then we'll drop down again, and then we'll go up again. But
Yeah.
gradually, we're not gonna drop as much each time. We're kind of gonna keep getting closer and closer, I think, to maxing it out. So I'm not
Yeah.
sure what we'll do. It's gonna be a nice problem to have when we get there, but to have 250 members all in it, but I don't know what we'll do at that point yet. We are slowly
Right.
migrating to Discord as a backup plan, so that's a good point.
It's it sounds like you almost need like a list serve, right? Someone has a question, you could post it, and then anyone can just respond to it, and then
Yes, yeah,
they can just go back. I know I see that in my professional world. So
yeah.
let's talking about your members. Like, how many members active about do you have? And most importantly, I'm really interested in how many countries are represented so far?
Wow, yeah. So I think we've probably got now, in terms of kind of since the migration, we've probably got about 150, I'd say, in terms of members that are part of this. We had on the stand, we'd ask people if they wanted to have their games on the stand and stuff like that. and I think we had 45 designers that kind of had their games on this stand. So 45 different games that are all on this one stand that people are coming up and going, oh wow, I know Questiony. So what's this other game that you've got on here as well? Why have you got Questiony on here? And explain to them, well, Leon's part of the group, and then going, oh, we've also got this one, we've got Cozy Cat Cafe, and they're going, oh, I didn't know that was out yet. Oh, well, yeah, it's out, but we don't have it here. We're not selling it. You have to go to
Right.
this point, and then you were directing people. So, yeah, it's being able to kind of have that aspect. But yeah, we've got the UK is obviously a big area that we cover because they've kind of founding members in the UK, and that's kind of how
Right.
we initially grown. US, we've got quite a few. We've got quite a few in Germany and other areas of Europe as well. That we kind of spread out on there. I know we've definitely got some in Australia and New Zealand, Canada as well. I believe we've got a few. So yeah, we've really stretched out quite far. I think we've got one out in Japan, or certainly in Asia. I think we've got a couple maybe. So yeah, we've stretched out kind of across the world and continuing to kind of stretch out as far as we can. Really, there's no limitations to where we
Yeah.
can have. And it's interesting. I'll go to bed and I'll have been messaging on the chat, and then I'll go to bed. I'll wake up and there'll be messages from the guys in the US who've kind of woken up and they've started messaging since I've gone to bed, and then
Yeah.
you kind of you're not always speaking directly to them because depending on what the time zones are and when people are awake, but we are still conversing and we're still chatting and still celebrating. And yeah, I'll often wake up to messages from Sarah at C Squared, and she's kind of gone on and gone like, oh, this is awesome, this is great. And she goes back through all the messages, and it's like, I wake up to just all these positive like messages. I'm like, this is such a nice way to wake up in the morning. So yeah, it's
You've
really good.
you've built you built an incredible community. It's so amazing, and I'm so happy to see it and to
Yeah,
talk to you about it. Like I didn't put it together that you were one of the founders of this group. I've heard about this group for so long because I've had so many designers
yeah,
on
yeah,
the show who now I consider friends that I try to keep in touch with as much as
yeah, yeah.
possible. Yeah, like for a while, I didn't know that Sarah and Ian from C Squared were part of this group, and then I learned that they were, and it's like okay, and it's like why have I not met Evan sooner?
Well, this is, I think for myself, it's been interesting. I've only just started, I guess, to sort of reach out more to content creators, podcasting, things like that, because up until now, despite founding this group, it's really weird because I've had such an imposter syndrome since starting design. I think a lot of people do when they start design. They go, well, I've got an idea, but I see all these games coming out and they're all finished and polished and they look great, and it's like, well, this is just an idea. And up until being a point of a published designer, I dreadfully suffered from imposter syndrome of having any opinion on board games, despite founding this group. I'm like there going, oh, well, I'm glad there's some experienced people in here because I don't know. But then, yeah, gradually you just start to get that experience. And I think what's important is everyone is a board game designer once they start designing a board game. You don't have to be, there's
Right.
no, there's no qualification that you have to say you are a board game designer. You can, as soon as you start doing it, as soon as you make that prototype, have that idea, you're a board game designer. I think that's important for these guys when they join is you're not, there's no, what do you know? You've only just started. It's very much, oh yeah, your opinion's valid. Your opinion is very much taken on board, whatever your circumstances and position. And we get all sorts joined from different backgrounds, which is really interesting. We get graphic designers and artists, but then you also get like lawyers join, and you get like people that are in finance, they know about, and people are providing advice on areas of their own, like outside of board game life, but offering advice on other
Wow.
areas, which is really helpful because someone starts asking a question about like contracts, and a lawyer pipes in and goes, oh, well, this is really important to consider. Or someone's done manufacturing before, so they know a bit about manufacturing outside of the board game world and what else there is. So yeah, it's really interesting when you get those other lives that kind of intertwine with the board game community.
How do you balance the two worlds, right? One is this community of designers supporting one another. And I have to admit, it sounds like it could be exhausting trying to hold everyone up and everything. And at the same time, you have sleepless night games where you're trying to design your own games.
Yeah,
How do you balance them?
I think the key aspect to board game prototype was we did get to a point where I think I was trying to manage it all at the very start, and it was very much like I was coming up with the themes, I was putting them all into a spreadsheet, and I was inviting new members in, I was reaching out to people, I was doing the lot, which was very, very, very difficult to keep on top of all that. as it
Absolutely.
is
Yeah.
anyway, even without designing games, but doing all that as a part-time aspect, not even a job. It's just what you're doing on the side with kids, with a wife who wants some attention as well,
Right.
and you're trying to do all this stuff. So it was very quick that actually Joe from Joe Plays Games, who's got the wonderful Word Dungeon and his recent 100 dungeons as well. He kind of was doing a lot within the group, and it was kind of got to a point of, well, look, Joe, can you help me with this admin? Can you be an administrator in this group and help with all this stuff and do all this? And he took it on so much and did so much with it, and yeah, really started to drive it forward. Harriet as well from Minty Noodles, who you may have come across, she she also got involved as well, and the two of them, I'm very much an ideas guy of, right, I've got an idea, this would be great, let's do this, let's do this. And they were coming up with these ideas, they were coming up with these ideas and going like, oh, we should do this, we should have a website, we should do this. And I was like, yeah, that sounds great. Thinking that's all it is. We go, yeah, it sounds great. Like that'd be cool to have in the future. And they're like, yeah, we've started to like build it and make it. I'm like, what do you mean? Like, no, I thought you were ideas people. I didn't realize you were doers. Like, what do you mean you're going out and doing these things? So I thought you were with me here. We were just going to discuss it and never touch it again. So yeah, they started to do all these cool things. Harriet is absolutely wonderful in terms of graphic design. So she's done loads of the graphic design for Board Game Prototype. She's done our logo. She did all our banner and stuff for UKGE and all our promotional material we had for that. So it's having people like that are in that development group that are really useful to kind of drive it forwards. And Sarah and Nat as well, from Nat's Originals. So they also joined. So we had some US people as well. So that if we weren't around, if it is nighttime for us and we're not on, and there's an issue going on, someone's brought up something controversial, that someone can get involved as an administrator in a very quick moving chat to deal with it. So it was really good to then have that support network and actually bounce ideas of each other, bounce kind of things that we're moving forwards with. To get to the next stage, because Sleepless Nights Games, I guess, was starting to grow and to start to become a real thing at that point. So it was good to go, right, actually, I need to focus on this now. Can someone actually take this over? So yeah, Joe took on a lot of the board game prototype admin, and then when he was stepping up with Word Dungeon and 100 dungeons, he was like, I need to take a step back from it. So I stepped back up again to then do more of it. And then he's now kind of closed off a lot of that. So he's now stepping up and I'm stepping back. And it's just having that balance really of, I don't have the time to do this right now. Who else can take it on? And then, yeah, working off each other in that sense.
So, what have you learned by watching all these designers come together and support one another and share their work?
I think the biggest thing I've learned is that you have to be ready before you. So all my two games so far that have been published or have funded on Kickstarter and going to be published in the case of Kickabout is, so they've been pitches. I've been pitching them. I've got designed those games and then pitched them. They've been signed, and then it almost has been taken away from me in terms of the process. So I didn't need to worry about a lot of that. I was involved in the development, but it's the kind of, when do we launch? When do we put it on Kickstarter? When do we go forward with it? That's kind of out of my hands, and it's in very experienced people. Kickabout with Galen McCown from Galen's Games, and then Before the Rain with Molinaris Games, I believe Molinaris Games, both very experienced, both done games before. They've done Kickstarters, they've published games. They know when to do it. I can just take
Right.
their advice, take their support, they go off and do it. But self-publishing is a whole different area, and actually, if it's your very first game, the amount of designers we see that come in and they run before they kind of walk and they go, right, I'm going to put it on Kickstarter. It's ready. It's good to go. And then it flops because there's so many games out there. And if you don't have the followers, you don't have the support, it's not going to fund as much as you want it to. And yeah, it's a shame to see. And sometimes people don't take that advice when you're saying, I think it's too early. And it's difficult to say that to someone as well, of just wait, because people don't want to necessarily wait. They want to get to that finish line. But for me now, like with Taking Treasures, I know that if it's not in the right place it needs to be by October, I won't launch it. I'll delay. Leon at Creston, done a great job with this. He was going to launch last year. It wasn't ready. He didn't have the following at that time, so he delayed it. He delayed it, I think, till May this year, and now he's delayed it again, I think, till October or September. So he's making sure that the timing is right, and I think that's so important because, yeah, you can really mess it up if you don't, and it's very difficult to bounce back from that and have mentality to go, let's go do that again after putting so much
Yeah,
into financially and time wise to then flop.
that's a really interesting threshold that designers have to face. Are there any are there any key performance indicators that you look for to know whether or not it's time to launch or delay?
I think the big thing comes down, if you're doing a Kickstarter, it comes down to the number of followers you've got on the Kickstarter itself. And because they're the ones that are there already. And it's,
Right.
I think quite often people go, well, I've got this many followers on Instagram. And it's like, yeah, but you've already been promoting this and they've not transferred to your Kickstarter. So why would they then transfer when you then launch and say, yes, I've launched now. So they're not going to necessarily all transfer across.
Yeah.
And it's about kind of being ready at that point. I think there's different figures that get bounced around of how many are likely to convert from your followers at your kind of pre-launch followers to actual backers, and there's different numbers, but the kind of 10% one gets bounded around a lot of 10% will kind of convert, and it does depend on how you collect them. If you collect them through free giveaways, the people sign up and they get entered into a free giveaway. People are more likely to sign up. Doesn't mean they're going to buy your game, but they're
That's
more likely to
true.
sign up, which again is good advice that we always give in the group is like, just be aware of how you're getting these. If you're telling people, oh, you get a free like pin badge if you sign up at an event, they're going to sign up because they want the free pin badge. They don't necessarily want the game. So it's not a bad thing to do that because some of them will want the game, but it's about kind of being able to have a knowledge of how you've got those followers and how you're going to convert. Taking treasures, for example, I've done very little in the sense of marketing it as such. I'm starting to get reviews now. I've sent it out to the UK Board Game Review Circle, which is a fantastic group. They they work very closely with the Board Game Prototype group in the UK. And yeah, we send pretty much every one of our games goes through them, or they get recommended every time because they come up with they've got great reviewers and they will pass it around. You give them one copy, they'll pass it on to the next person, pass it on to the next
Yeah.
person. So a much cheaper alternative for indie designers to be able to do that and to make it work, because we can't all afford to send out 50 copies of a game to then get reviews come in. So they've been really good. And I've started doing that. So it's started getting a minor amount of traction, but I know that anyone that follows it is following it because they want to follow that game and they're interested in that game. So I can be quite confident in those followers that, providing the price is right when it launches, they will probably convert, or a lot of them will convert in terms of percentage wise. So that gives me some confidence in that. But yeah, I think it's just key knowing where what your support is going into it, which the only indicators you can use are those figures, and yeah, kind of having a good aspect of what people are
Right.
thinking. Yeah.
So let's talk about content creators for a minute. How big of a role have they played for you and for all the other designers in the promotion leading up to help you make that decision whether to launch or not?
Yeah, it's been a weird one for me because when it comes to the two games that have already launched, they've been ones that have been through publishers so I've been the designer, they've been the publishers. So I've not been in control of who's promoting it or where it's getting sent to and what reviews we're getting beforehand and how that content is going to be formed, I guess. So they're both very different as well. Kickabout, for example, Galen put a lot of time into the marketing of Kickabout and reached out to some really good influencers as well. So Grant plays Grant Games Rex.
Hmm.
So Grant Leon, he was I met him at UKG actually, but he he covered Kickabout and he's a big soccer fan. And this is again something that pains me, but it's been published by a US publisher. So soccer is is what Galen calls it. He's allowed me to keep pushing it as a football game as much as he doesn't necessarily agree with that.
Right.
Yeah, Grant was a big fan of soccer, so Galen was keen to get it in front of him. He reviewed it, and he's got a big following. So to have someone like that review game is fantastic, and to be able to put that content out there. And then on the flip side, we've got Molinaris Games, who before the rain, we didn't have any preview copies. There were no copies that went out to reviewers before launch.
Okay.
But what we did have was we had a preview event that was arranged by Mike over at Huff No More. So he had a new game coming out this year. there were a couple of other people that had a new game coming out this year in Molinaris Games as well. So we took Before the Rain to that. We had 20 or 24 reviewers that were there that basically circled around the table. So 4 on a table that went round, played your game. Then another 4 came on, played your game. So there were lots of people got the experience to play it, but didn't necessarily take a copy away to then go review it. And then we did
Okay.
the same at Aircon as well, which is in March. It's kind of the next biggest in the UK after UKGE. Again, we didn't have any preview copies to give out, but people were coming over, having a go, and then we were getting kind of like a one-line review of this is what they thought of the game. So Lee was unable to put those, and Mike as well, at Board Game Peacock, who did the development. They could then put those onto the page, the Kickstarter page, all these one-liners that came from all these different reviewers. We've not had to send out loads of copies, but we've got all these one-liners to say how great they love the game and how good the game was. And that's all people need really, is a one-liner from a reviewer to say, I approve this game is good. And they see that reviewer, they know that review, and they go, well, I trust that opinion. So that's a good opinion. I'll take that forward. So that's all we really needed for some of them. Whereas now I'm kind of using that UK review circle and trying to put my games out with them, and they're starting to build the following. Every time I get a review in, I kind of bump up the followers on my pre-launch by 10 to 15 each time. So that's really helpful. Each time I get a review back from them, it's bumping it up. And I'm sure that will continue up until October, but it's just kind of being able to manage that time with them as well. Because there's so many games, they've got so many games to get through. And then UKG's just happened, so they've got so many more games to get. So it's trying to, yeah,
So
work.
many games.
Yeah, absolutely.
So if you could go back and give first day Evan of 2020,
Yeah.
one piece of advice before starting this leg of your journey, what would it be?
It would probably be that your first game design isn't going to be your best game design. And it's like, don't worry about it too much. I think just get something down. There's a amount of people you see who've got an idea who wait to get that prototype just made and just get it out and start playing it and start putting something down on paper. Because the amount of games I've had now where I've gone, oh yeah, I've got an idea. This is my idea. I start to make the prototype and go, well, this is never going to work. Like this is like in my brain it works, but physically making the components, the number of components or the shape of the components or the size or the way they combine, the admin that if there's a lot of shuffling or messing around, it all works in your brain because it's done instantly. But putting it down and going, right, now I have to move this here and this here and this, and you go, well, this is too much, or it's too little, or it's not fun. So that is what I'd say is kind of my first advice: is just make something, get something down the table, and it's not going to be perfect, but it doesn't have to be perfect because that's when the work comes and you work on it after that.
Right. Right. So you have, because we've talked at length about Board Game Prototype, the community that you have had such a tremendous role in building amongst designers. You've talked about how you're not exclusive to the UK. The Prototype group is around the world, so you're covering multiple nations. What is it? I want to talk to you about the board game designer scene in the UK specifically for a minute.
Yeah.
What is it to your mind that separates the community of UK designers from, and I realize you haven't traveled to all these nations and have just in depth, but what separates the UK designers, that community, from the others that you've observed?
Yeah, I mean, like I say, like you say there, it's difficult to say, well, we do this and you don't do this, or
Right.
we do this and you don't. So, but what I would say is that within the UK, there's such an indie designer kind of scene that we have in community, and there's an indie publishers group, there's an indie designers group, Board Game Prototype as such. So, and we're all there, kind of supporting each other. We have there's meetups that go on in between. There's it's not just right, let's go to an event. And I think it's potentially because it's on that smaller scale, but big as well. So because it is quite close knit, and we're only a small country when you compare us to
Right.
the US and the size of
Mm.
the US. And so when we're speaking to each other, we're often not that far away. So there's people that we are traveling up. I live not too far from Birmingham. So when people are traveling to Birmingham, they'll say, oh, I'm in Birmingham. Is anyone around? And I might go and play a game with them or play test some games. And similarly, if I'm going to London and there's some people around there, I say, well, is anyone around for a game? So we're always kind of able to have those meetups throughout the year. It's not just Right. Well, when's UKGE next? So that's the next time we're going to see each other is at a big event. And when you go to those events, you don't always get the chance to do those things. So yeah, it's been a really good community for that. And I think that was shown when we had this stand at Board Game Prototype because everyone was supporting it. Everyone was donating towards it. We had all these games getting put on the stand. So there's just so many there. And so many of them were at the expo already, but we're then pointing them in the direction. Someone's coming over and looking at a game and go, oh yeah, they're here today. They're over there. So head that way. You'll go see them in hall two. And being able to kind of have that support for each other.
Yeah,
There's enough room in board games for everyone to be, for all of us to be successful. There's no kind of, I guess, malice behind it of, well, no, I don't want to send people your way to buy a game because I want you to buy my game. It's whole, they can buy both. There's no board gamers very much like to buy games and play games. There's very
yeah,
few board gamers you see who go, oh, I don't like buying games because everyone likes to have them. That's the whole point of it. So yeah, it's not hard to kind of have that support, I think, and it goes both ways. At some point, everyone's going to need support, so it's good to hand it out when you can.
sure. I think that my favorite aspect, and I only got to sample just a small sliver of it, but my favorite thing about the gaming scene and the community in the UK is exactly what you're talking about, the smaller meetups.
Yeah,
That's not something that we can do in this country because we're so big and we live
yeah,
so physically far away from one another. We have to rely on conventions
yeah,
to hopefully get to see each other. And so that is the one thing about the UK that I'm absolutely jealous of.
yeah, yeah.
I
It is strange because like I'm there
yeah,
going like, oh, you're an hour away, like you're really far away, like I'm not going to see you very much. But then it's like, well, that's nothing in the US. Like an hour is like that's a short drive compared to what you could be doing,
short,
compared
short.
to what you could be doing to see some people.
We will drive 3 hours to spend the day with you and come
Yeah.
home, right? I mean,
You can get
that's not
like from where I live in the UK, like I'm in the Midlands, you can get anywhere in 3 hours. You pretty much like you can go
yeah.
to the top of the country or bottom of the country, west or east, you're there. So yeah, it's not too bad.
Absolutely, absolutely. So, how has attending conventions, particularly UKGE from this year, but just in general, how has attending conventions and expos changed your perspective on board game publishing?
Yeah, so I went to before I was a designer, I went to UKG once and because of locality it was close to me and some friends were going, so invited us along. And I think you don't really appreciate the absolute like size of how many publishers, board games that are being released until you go to a convention like UKGE. And I've not had the chance to go to Essen yet, but or Gen Con, but when I go to those in future, I know it's going to be absolutely insane.
Yes.
So yeah, I think for me, I'm like UKG is huge. Can't imagine what those ones are like. So yeah, I think this was my first one as a so I went last year as a designer, but this was my first one as a published designer. And yeah, that so actually last year I went, took a game which was Before the Rain. I pitched it at the event on the Saturday and it got signed at the event on the Saturday. And then this year we had it to sell. So it had gone through that full 12 months of development, design development and manufacturing fulfillment, and then it was there. So yeah, and it sold out by the Saturday by 3 o'clock. It had all gone, the stock we had. So it went really well, but it was a really interesting going as a published designer this time, and it felt very different, kind of because I was involved in the setting up. I was very much on the other side of the table for the whole convention, pretty much. And being on that side does feel very different, and you see a lot less of it. Like you don't get to have the experience of going around, but yeah, the experience is really something that I was very excited for, and it went exactly as I hoped for. I couldn't have hoped for it to be any better. Everyone was so friendly coming up and playing the
Yeah.
game and demoing. And then when you make that first sale of a game that you've designed and someone goes, yeah, I want to buy it. And it's just like, oh, wow, you're buying my game. Like this has got my name on it. And it's like telling people that what like once people said they wanted to buy it, then telling them I'm the designer. Not telling them before. I'm not telling them before they've said they're buying it because they don't like
No,
it.
of course not.
They don't like it. They don't
Of
need to
course
know
not.
it's my game.
What are some trends that you're seeing in the UK board gaming scene that really it's exciting you? There's something that you see that has got you excited?
Yeah, I think for me, the exciting trend is that the games are getting, a lot of them are getting smaller, and actually having small games is a real push now. So yeah, there's obviously still always going to be those exciting big games from the big publishers, and there's the ones that come with minis and extras and all sorts in the big boxes, and they're great as well. But for me, that there's sometimes I get one of those out and I look at it and go, no, I can't. I don't have the mental strength right now to be able to set this game up, let alone play it.
Right.
But there's some really small games that are doing fantastically. A game by a guy called Kev called One for Sorrow, which is a solo. It's a solo 18 card game that plays in your hand as well. They don't have to put it down at all. It literally plays in your hand. 18 cards, comes in a kind of a hook box, so it all just folds out. It's the tiniest game, but it's done so well and for very good reason. And I picked a copy up at the expo because that is perfect for me in an evening. I can sit down before bed, just play a hand of that, and switch off a little bit from the stresses of the world, and play a little game, and then yeah, it's having that kind of ease really to take that around with you, which is what I've kind of kick about as a very travel friendly game. That comes in the tiniest tin. If you've ever seen one of Galen's games tins, they are very tiny, tinier than I even thought. When the prototype I made in a mint tin is like 4 times as big as the actual finished version in the size of tins he uses. But it's perfect. It works really well for that travel game. And I think that's been really popular, which excites me because I prefer creating smaller games with limited resources, and yeah, it takes a lot to design. I very much like think that people that can design big games are very impressive in how they do it, but there's also something to be said about Kev designing a game with 18 cards in your hand and being able to design that. And I'm like, well, you can get a game that uses only 18 cards that is highly popular and very well done, and you can play it in your hand. Like those design constraints are not having the luxury of going, oh, I'll just add another card in, or oh, I'll just add another dice in. You can't do that. This is all you've got. 18 cards. Make a game with that is really thrilling to see that as well.
What is something about game publishing that most gamers don't get to see?
I think there's a lot that yeah, gamers probably don't get to see behind the scenes, but and that's what I think board game prototype's good for, because you get to see those prototypes. So we post about our very first prototypes when it is literally paper drawings, hand drawings, sketches, and stuff, right the way through to the finished results. So that's definitely a reason for people to follow it, not designers to join it, but people to follow it. Is that's a good reason because you get to see those games and you get to see a lot of the behind the scenes stuff as well. But I would say the big one that I always find challenging to speak to people about is the cost of delivery. And you see it on Kickstarters and the Kickstarter funds, and then you go, right, now you need to pay for the delivery, like the shipping
Yeah.
charges. And everyone's like, well, why have I just had this much added on? And it's like, well, shipping costs a lot, but there's been certain, very large companies that have certain offerings where they give free delivery on everything, and you sign up and get free
Yeah.
delivery. So people get that in their heads. Why is not everything not free? Why can I not just get it delivered for free? But it costs a lot to ship and a lot to get postage. So trying to take a game from the UK and ship it out to Canada, for example, can be very expensive. And people are often like, well, for small games as well, like, why is it the same cost as the game? Why am I paying
Right.
the cost of the game again to
Right.
get this game? But yeah, sometimes it's kind of, it's difficulty. It's some sort of necessary evil of, well, if you want it, that's what you have to do until it's in retail or distribution there. That is the only way to get it. But yeah, I think there's a lot of frustrations there, and I've been frustrated with it in the past as well before designing, of going, why am I paying so much for this, like, or not backing a game because of the delivery charges. But there's no other way to do it. The only way of doing it is adding it into the cost of the game, which will turn people off. So you can't do that either. It's very tricky.
How do you manage to stay motivated personally despite all the challenges and the setbacks and the successes? How do you stay motivated?
I think the community is great for that. You can bounce off each other, and yeah, when you're having a particularly low point, people can pick you up and give you that motivation and give you those successes as well. When I did a lot of pitches, or it felt like a lot anyway, of certain games that didn't get anywhere, and it was trying to get those games out there. That was really tough to keep going with that. But for me, I just tried to move on to something else. just go, right, well, I'll park that for now. Like mine and Dash is probably one of my wife's favorite game designs of mine that she's played. But she's like, why are you not pushing that one forwards? Why are you not publishing that one? Why are you not kind of going ahead with that? And it's like, well, no, people didn't want it, or it wasn't the right time, and I was getting a lot of rejection on it. So it's like, well, I couldn't just keep pitching it. I wanted to move on to something else, and I don't really want to self-publish that as my first game because it's got more components. Whereas Taking Treasures is a 2-player, 40-card game. That's it. Comes in a tiny little treasure chest. So it's like that's a game where I know that I don't have to make hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of copies. I can literally make a couple of hundred, get it manufactured, and that will suffice. That will be out in the world. And then if it does well, then I'll make more. But yeah, that other game would have been very expensive to make on a small scale. So it kind of needs a publisher. So it's difficult with those things to keep yourself moving forwards. And I think using the community, using other people, not siloing yourself is the
Yeah.
best way to get through it.
Yeah. So 10 years from now, when gamers reflect on you as a designer, Sleepless Night Games, the community that you've built through the prototype group, what is it that you hope that they're going to say about the impact you've had on this hobby?
So this is just going back to my imposter syndrome again and going like, I've had like no impact. Like it feels very much like not being able to made any impact on it because it's a strange one. Like the board game prototype group to me still feels very, very much like, I guess I created something and founded it, but I'm not in, it's not like I control it. It's not like I
Sure.
control all the aspects of it. But and it's interesting. A lot of people don't know, even that are in the group, don't know I founded the group because I don't go in there when they join and go, "Hi, I'm the founder. Let's welcome to my group." It's not like that. It's a community, and although I might have started it, it's very much a case of it is everyone's group for everyone.
Right.
So yeah, it's a
Well,
weird,
that's
it's a
what I'm
weird.
here for.
Yeah,
That's what I'm here.
you've now told all
Guys,
these
this is
people.
Evan, and he's the founder.
Yeah, all these people in the group were like, I never knew that. Yeah,
Sure.
and for a long time I was quite faceless behind my Instagram profile, Sleepless Nights Games. No one knew even what my name was, so it's a really weird aspect to it all, and having that point to it. But yeah, I mean, I'm very pleased. I set out in this to try and make a game and publish. I have a game published, and whether that was self-publishing or pitching and getting it published, I never set out to have a game published. But I fell in love with designing, so now I
Yeah.
design for fun. And if I can design and enjoy the designs I'm doing, that's great. If I think a game is good enough, then yes, I'll pitch it, and yes, I want to keep making more games that go out into the world. I'm going to self-publish this one in October, see how that goes. If I don't enjoy the process, I probably won't ever self-publish again, and I'll just stick to pitching. If I do enjoy the process, I'm sure I'll do more that are self-published. But I've really enjoyed working with Galen's Games. I've really enjoyed working with Molinaris Games to do both these games. So having 2 or hopefully 3 games out in the world, I think that is more than I ever hoped for. So yeah, I think if I can keep putting some games out there, it'd be great. The feedback I'm getting now with Before the Rain being out in the world is just wonderful to get people playing my game that are in all different parts of the world and enjoying it and messaging me to say, we've just played this. My 6-year-old loves it. My 7-year-old loves it. Like my niece beat my brother at it. She's 6 years old and she beat my brother. And my brother's like, I don't like this game. I shouldn't be losing to like my 6-year-old daughter. And I'm like, go on, girl. You've done really well there to go and beat him. And it's like fantastic that she can do that. So that's the kind of, I guess, the legacy I want to build is just some games that people enjoy and will play and hopefully play time and time again for years to come. I don't want it to be a game where they play and then put away and never touch again. Hopefully it's games that they keep coming back to. So they're the ones that I think everyone's got those games in their collection, haven't they? They'll keep coming back to time and time again. And if you can make one of those, then that's the dream, really.
Evan Wilcock, he designed games for fun.
Yeah,
There you
exactly.
go. Well, thank you so much for taking time out of your incredibly busy schedule to talk to me and share your story. I am very grateful for that. Where can everyone find you if they have questions about your games and projects you've got coming out soon, or they're interested in the board game prototype and following along? Where can they find you?
Yeah, so Instagram's the best place. So Sleepless Nights Games is my Instagram handle, so that's the best place to find me directly. And then yeah, if you want to find the Board Game Prototype group, then yeah, that's called Board Game Prototype on Instagram as well. So they're the two places you can find us. Yeah, designers, please join the group. We'd love to have you in there, love to support you. And if you're not a designer, but you want to see what games look like from the very start, definitely follow that as well. I'll be sure to show you what they look like.
Well, thanks again for joining. I have enjoyed this conversation so very much. I hope that all of you have enjoyed listening. Please make sure to click that like and subscribe button and help push this through all the algorithms which are constantly fighting against us. As always, be kind to one another and let's play more games.
Cheers.